September 26, 2022 for the Rhinelander City Hall Council meeting. It is 6 o'clock. We're on the second floor of City Hall. Media has been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Tom Kelly.
Here.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
David Holt.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here, we have quorum. Moving on to number 3, Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to public comment, we have Ben Meyer.
On? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Ben Meyer, 1621 Balsam Street, City of Rhinelander resident. The last time I stood before you as a city council was a couple of months ago, and I brought to your attention my feel for the need for the people on the west side of Rhinelander in the neighborhood where I live to have a safe way to walk and bike to the rest of the city. That's something that we don't have now. Our only way to walk or bike to the city is on Davenport Street, which is narrow, it is busy, and it has no sidewalks. Since that time, a couple of months ago, I've knocked on the doors of every one of my neighbors in the neighborhood, in the West Hill neighborhood. Got the clipboard to show it, and talked to many folks, and I found that just about everyone is of a similar mind as me in that we need a way to access the rest of our city safely by foot or by bike. Since that time, I've also had a couple of conversations with the mayor, with the city administrator, and with the city attorney. I want to thank them for their time. And they, as we were talking, they proposed a solution. It's a solution that is perhaps not a completely perfect solution. And it's a solution that I didn't necessarily intend when I set out on this project, but I think it's a solution that is going to benefit dozens of households, over 100 houses. There's over 100 households in this neighborhood that right now are isolated from the rest of their city by walking or biking. So I made a brief graphic for you. It's and passed it out to you. West Side Connector Trail is what I titled it. And just to give you an idea of what you're looking at here, the plan that was posed and that I'm in support of is a trail, short trail, somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 feet that connects the dead end on West Hill Drive to the corner of Lois and Phillip Streets. And the advantage of this plan is for the folks of us, the 100 plus households that live in this neighborhood, they're able to access the rest of their city by foot or by bike by Phillip Street instead of Davenport Street. And if you can envision Phillip Street, it's much wider, it's much less busy in terms of traffic, and it's mostly sidewalked along the way. The parcels, the 2 parcels that are planned to have the trail are currently owned by the City of Rhinelander. My understanding is that as it stands, there would be no property acquisition needed by the city. And the mayor has told me this is something that's in the plans either this fall or next spring at the latest. So I want to let you know that I'm strongly in support of this plan. In talking with my neighbors, the vast majority are strongly in support of a plan to keep their families safe when accessing the parks and library and playgrounds in the rest of the city. I also want to note that I believe there are 2 landowners that have some objections. Perhaps you've heard from them. I want to let you know that I respect those folks. I respect their opinion. I just happen to have a different opinion on this particular issue, and that stems from the overall good that you're doing for dozens, for over 100 households on this side of Rhinelander. So I come to you with that update for what it's worth, and a thank you to the city for engaging in these discussions and having this plan. I will last note that I'm still fully in favor, ultimately, of a solution on Davenport Street, a path or a sidewalk, realizing that may be a decent time away because of hurdles that need to be jumped. This is an immediate solution for relief for quite a lot of families on this side of Rhinelander, families with young children, families with elderly parents, things like that. I realize I'm in the public comment section, so I can't take or answer questions. If you've got them, feel free to contact me. I've put my contact information on the bottom of the page there. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Michael?
Good evening. I'm Michael Hendricks. I live at 1608 Westwind Drive. I'm one of Ben's neighbors. And I just want to reiterate or reinforce what Ben said. I've lived there now for almost 20 years. We were one of the earlier houses on Westwind Drive, and it's long past there's some kind of way we can. Davenport sucks. Is just for pedestrians. Okay, it's just a terrible road. It's narrow. Ben touched on all that with the exception. He didn't mention the vast majority of people drive too fast. And I'm sure I'm guilty of that sometimes. I try not to be because I'm cognizant of the road. But nonetheless, it would be nice to have a way to get into the city or just to take my dog for a walk that didn't entail just walking down to Davenport and turning around and coming home. Which right now would be a long walk. You can all see I'm on a cane, but hopefully this time next year I won't be, and it'd be nice to be able to go walk a couple miles without just doing a couple circles. So, and the other thing I would like to reinforce is, ideally, I do think if something can be done on Davenport Street, that's a better long-term solution, but I'm somewhat of a pragmatist, whatever the heck the word is, and I'll take what I can get at this point, but I hope that's just not buried. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Tom Giroux, 604 Reich Street. Sorry I didn't get my name on the list. I would be in favor of 8B on your agenda, vacating the right-of-way on Reich Street. I live adjacent, and I don't believe the city has any use for that little piece of property, and I and the adjacent property owners would appreciate it being vacated. So that, and the tree board does have plans to plant trees on West Phillip Street, so that'll make the walk into town a little shadier.
Anyone else for public comment? Not seeing none. Moving on to mayor's comments. So I have two. One, we have the Hodag stage ribbon cutting, which is this Wednesday from 5 to 7:30 at night. This is what the City of Rhinelander, the Rhinelander Community Foundation, Rhinelander Breweries involved, as well as the Rhinelander Little League, to help continue to improve this park. And the second one is if I could have Mark Barden come up from Town and Country. I did give him a bit of a warning for this, so I don't feel too bad.
It wasn't much of a warning, but...
So usually I call Mark, I don't know, probably once a week regarding capital improvement projects and, fixing our roads, our underground utilities. So recently we have been notified of something that we've been awarded, which has to do a lot with our engineer and what they do to fill out the paperwork correctly to help us out. So most of us know about next year we have quite a bit of capital improvements regarding the Oneida Street, King Street, and Anderson Street, and it's been official. We are getting awarded $1.3 million for underground utilities for our drinking water system. So thank you, Mark, for helping make this possible, as well as the rest of the city staff.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment from city staff and the council, and everybody came together to make it work. So.
Cool. Okay, moving on to consent agenda.
Daniel, I'll make a move to approve items A, B, and C on the consent agenda.
Hold second.
Ms. Anderson?
I had some corrections to make on the minutes, so can I still withdraw that from the consent agenda?
So since there's technically been a motion and a second, I believe you'd have to get permission from those two or amend, if I'm correct. Yeah, or
Can I ask Mr. Anderson if these are changes that are imperative to be made for understanding or clarification on the minutes?
I don't know how to answer that without detailing what they are, but I think there's something left out in 7B and in at the end of 7F. Wait a sec. How's that? Oh, that's how they're numbered. That's all I wanted. The main one. The others you say it's clerical or Scrivener's error or whatever. 7B, instead of pertaining to the approved fee, it should be to be paid according to the approved fee schedule. I think that makes a difference. I don't know what pertaining would mean at that point.
okay, Mr. Barnett, since your hand's up.
I would just like to once again request that these kind of corrections be addressed before city council meetings, as these are just clerical and wording, worded one way, someone words it another kind of thing. We got a lot of other things that we really need to be spending our time on. This is something that can be done prior to council meetings so that it's correct when it comes to council for all of us to vote on. So I would make that request that not only Gerald, but the rest of us alder people come to the Steve or Zach or yourself if there is an issue with the minutes or the agenda itself, because this is, to me, just a waste of time to be going through clerical errors during a meeting.
Noted. Mr. Anderson?
I believe that the minutes ought to say what we're doing in a way that people can understand it, and that's all I'm trying to do. But I also would ask the clerk how that would take place according to Mr. Barnett's idea. If I come to you this afternoon with these things, are you going to come out with possibly with a revised version by the meeting time?
I can answer that.
Yeah, since he's directing the question to you.
The agenda is sent out days before the meeting. As a matter of fact, the week before the meeting, this agenda comes out. So that is more than ample time for every alderperson to go through the meeting minutes and find any corrections that need to be made prior to it. There's 24 hours that Austin needs to be able to post it. So it's something that can easily be done within a time frame that is suitable before the meeting.
Well, all I would ask then is that the clerk be prepared to come up with an alternate version before the meeting if that's necessary.
Mr. Mayor,
Steve?
you're getting into some, yeah, we don't want to go to an amended agenda, because if you go to amended agenda, you've got the 24-hour notice period, or really 2 days, or unless it's an emergency. What I think you're suggesting and what can be done is simply, if we come into the council meeting, and at the council meeting, when the motion is made just like now to approve the meeting minutes, if you would give the administrator or the clerk the right to make Scrivener's corrections, that's perfectly okay, and the motion can be made. I move to approve the consent agenda with the understanding that there may be certain Scrivener errors that need to be corrected that do not change the meaning of any of the items in the agenda, and then we can just do that.
What about making the minutes a separate motion? Take it out of the consent agenda and make it a separate
Well,
motion.
that could have been done before the motion to approve the consent agenda was
Right.
seconded, but now you got to vote against the motion to
Yeah.
accept the consent agenda, then you can do it separately. You can always do that, yes. I'm just trying to do it right now.
Right,
But in the future, I think that all we're asking for as administration is just let us know, we'll make it work. If it's a huge change, then we'll go to the point of doing an amended agenda. But please read these things as soon as they come, because it sure makes our life a lot easier. I mean, I've corrected, well, I will tell you this several times when I see it, because there's things that are wrong. Did we correct the date on that one? You get 20 minutes, you can find where it said February instead of September. You already caught it.
So-
But those are the things, we
So
catch those
currently,
things.
we're sitting on a motion and a second. Are we looking to amend, or are we looking to vote down, or move forward? Okay, not seeing any more discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Nay.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 7, which would be the second reading of the planting of trees and shrubbery ordinance. Mr. Anderson?
I move adoption of ordinance 2022-16 to amend section 3.01.07 entitled Trees and Shrubbery Prohibited.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Moving on to 8A. First, I would refer to our attorney just to kind of tell us our options regarding, this isn't something that happens all the time. This is regarding the veto I did of last meeting's ordinance regarding public amusement.
Yeah, whenever there's a veto, then there has to be what's called a veto message, which meant the mayor has to alert the council that he has vetoed an action that was taken by the council. And the mayor is to, in that veto message, indicate what the purpose or the reason behind his veto is. Then it's before the council. The council has the right at the next meeting of the council to take up the veto, which is either you can vote to override the veto, which would be the motion you'd make. I would make a motion that we override the mayor's veto and pass ordinance number 02214, so on and so forth. And that would put it back on the table for action by the council. It does require a two-thirds vote to override the mayor's veto, just so you understand that. Otherwise, the veto will stand. Does that define what people need to know?
I think so. And if anyone didn't see the
Well,
reason...
and there's one other point, I'm sorry, because I know you're going to say this. You can always remember that once this is vetoed or once it's passed, not passed, that ordinance is gone. You can't bring that up again. You can bring up a new ordinance that addresses somewhat the same issue, but it's got to be restated and it can't be identical to the previous action that you've already taken. Because otherwise you just get into this merry-go-round of passing or vetoing, passing, vetoing. That's why the law has been established under the rules. You cannot bring the same motion up in the same legislative session. For you, that's in a year or until the next election.
And just if someone did not see the reason why, is anyone who wants to hold these public events, I don't think their tax jurisdiction should dictate if they have the ability to come to this body to ask for fees to be waived. I don't think we should be saying to one group yes, one group no, because these events have positive impact on our community, and everyone should have the right to stand there and ask us, we need help. So that was my logic for the veto. Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to override the mayoral veto and pass ordinance 2022-14 to amend 4.05.05 public amusements with the language that was agreed upon in a 7-to-1 vote at the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Is there a second?
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Mr. Holt?
Yes, I understand your reasoning and stating that you believe that that's an unreasonable double standard based on registered charitable organizations or nonprofit organizations versus somebody who wants to do an event that they're going to hopefully profit from. I personally, I believe that that is a reasonable standard, and that I would like to ask my fellow council members to simply reaffirm their vote. I think that the guiding principle, or one of the guiding principles of distinguishing nonprofit and charitable organizations, is to provide an incentive for citizens to act altruistically for the benefit of their community. I think it provides the basic, the most basic guardrails against any individual organization who's looking to profit off of something. Simply say, hey, I can increase my profit margin by asking the council to let the city taxpayers absorb that extra cost. So if you're going to say it's a small cost, then if they're looking to have an event that is going to generate a profit, well, that's a part of doing business. But asking taxpayers to absorb that for the benefit of for-profit organizations is a problem for me. And I understand that one of the statements made was, well, this council wouldn't do that. Well, but we're setting policy for things that go beyond any of us individually being on council. The last thing I'd note is, yes, it is possible for a future council to simply change what we do here. Policy can be changed that way. However, they would have to do it publicly. They would have to show that they're doing it. And then if they did it for a particular reason, they would have to justify that reason. So in summation, I do believe that the wording was good and reflects the values that certainly I want to promote. And at least at the time, 7 of us voted yes to promote. Thanks.
Mr. Barnett?
When I originally added that wording into the ordinance, it wasn't a statement of saying that everyone is going to get a free pass if you have a certain tax ID. It's the wording that matters to me. The wording is in the ordinance that says they can come before council. It doesn't mean that they're going to get what they want. It just means that they know that they can do that. And I understand that, a couple of people have told me, you can look at the fee schedule. But organizers don't look at fee schedules. They look at ordinances. And most of the time, they don't even look at ordinances. Just having the wording in there, I think, is worth having. But I will say that I also respect what you're trying to say as well. About being fair and all that. So I will accept whatever this council agrees upon and move forward with it. So that I just want to make my reasoning clear as to why I want that in there. It's it's wording that people know they can do this, because most people don't know that they have that option, and I just want them to know they do.
Mr. Jopek?
I'm probably in the line with Mr. Holt, but I see that the fee schedule that we have, which is not that significant for-profit individuals who are looking to, at least, I guess I can't speak from any kind of experience, but I don't know too many for-profit companies or individuals that want to have something of this large scale that aren't looking to profit off of it. And so, as Mr. Holt said, to have the taxpayer kind of eat that, for lack of better terms, on those grounds, knowing that some company is putting that on to make money. You go back to the county fair, even that we sat and said, well, let's revisit this next year when they've had a year under their belt. And so we even had like that little addendum there on waiving their fee for police and whatnot. And so I think the idea that a for-profit, unless it's, raising funds for cancer or something, I don't see where the taxpayer should be involved in paying for that expense.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, I don't think we had an explanation in the first place as to why this ordinance came before us in the original form. The appearance of it is that 3 different sections were somehow selected to remove the exemption for charitable organizations. And I opposed that. Well, I was okay with that if that was really a general coverage, but my viewpoint is and was then that if it's a general thing that applies to all kinds of events that have fees, it ought to be with the fee schedule or in some place of general application, not attached to individual sections. So now, so then Mr. Barnett's amendment was to put back in the exemption for 2 of these, but not the 3rd one. And I don't understand all the rationale for that, because I didn't understand the rationale in the first place. So at this point, I'm opposed to overriding the veto, because I think we ought to revisit this thing at some time and do it in a different way.
Zach, question for you. So let's assume I'm a nonprofit, I want to hold a parade.
Mm-hmm.
Can that nonprofit come to this body to request the fees to be waived?
That's right.
Okay. Any type of special events that wouldn't cover in this ordinance?
Effective January 1st, all applications will go through an application process where there's associated application fee, and we've sort of revised and enhanced the entire fee schedule for barricades and any ancillary type things.
So kind of to Mr. Anderson's point, they would still be responsible for the $100 fee currently.
That's right.
But then if they fall under one of these 2 subcategories, they could come here to have the additional fees waived.
Right, any fees for
Potentially.
those 3 associated activities, yep.
So I could see your point, Mr. Anderson, as far as if we're going to treat nonprofits, it should be across the board for nonprofits versus only in certain categories. I do see your point there. Any more discussion? Mr. Barnett?
I was under the assumption that non-for-profit and 501c3s covered all non-for-profits.
But with this ordinance, it's always notating that on those certain categories of events versus events in general. So that's, I think, the point Mr. Anderson's trying to make is you're protecting one base but not another.
Well, that was my intent, all non-for-profits.
Yes, but only for the categories mentioned in said ordinance, not all type of public events that are being held by nonprofit. That makes sense?
Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
So these ordinance,
I'm just
yeah,
said
what I
all
think he's saying is,
non-for-profits.
what he's saying is this ordinance is all that's in front of you tonight. So
Yeah.
any other fees contained elsewhere throughout the ordinances would still be applied and operate the way it does today unless they were amended.
Got it.
And it's just these sections are being amended.
Understood.
Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Leanne Felton,
Nay.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Nay.
Gerald Anderson,
Nay.
David Holt,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Nay.
Okay, veto holds.
4-4.
Moving on to 8B, resolution vacating right-of-way of Reich Street. Refer to Zach.
Yeah, if you were to look at a map or GIS, essentially.
Two-thirds.
Needed 6 votes in favor in order to override the veto.
Okay.
Only 5.
2/3, that's right.
There were only 4 votes in favor, so
Yeah,
it did
4
not
to 4.
If you were to travel north on Reich Street toward Marshall Street, you'll notice, you won't really notice anything unless you were to look at a map, but there's right-of-way that travels to the river, and that was contemplated, I believe, for future utilities, maybe a bridge. I'm not sure exactly what was contemplated in city planning at that point in time. The city presently doesn't have a need for it, so this is the first of a number of steps associated with vacating the right-of-way. Essentially, what will happen if and when this were to occur, it would be split, half to the adjacent property to the west and half to the east. In the case of the property owner to the east, you'll find that home is being renovated. The home is sort of built on the property line or over the property line, so this is a productive cleanup, and staff would recommend that we approve the vacation of the right-of-way and we'll reestablish right-of-way. But again, this is the first of a number of steps.
And there are no utilities underneath said property.
That's correct.
Mr. Anderson?
And I did catch the February to September, what Steve was referring to earlier.
So no utilities involved? Is that?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And I would recommend that we establish some sort of easement just in case there would be a need in the future, so no structures are built over that
Yeah.
area.
How large is this property, roughly?
I don't remember the exact width of the right-of-way. It's a pretty narrow street. I would say yeah, maybe that much. Yeah.
But by
60.
like 50.
Yeah, probably
So-
more like 50 feet. Yeah.
And in the second resolved paragraph, it says clerk and city council. Does that mean the city council will have further things to do regarding setting a hearing?
That's right. So there'll be so the resolution, if it passes tonight, there'll be a hearing established, and then there's some also correspondence that needs to be mailed to the adjacent property owners.
Well, it doesn't seem to me that city council needs to be mentioned in there if we're not going to be the ones that are setting the hearing.
Well, you're going to hold a hearing.
You're going to host it.
Yeah. By passing the resolution, you're in effect initiating the setting of a hearing. So I would argue that you need both city clerk and city council to be cited in there, because you're the body that's passing it.
Barnett, I make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-20, 19, vacating ROW at Reich Street north of Marshall Street.
Jopek, second.
Any more discussion? Not seeing none, clerk take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
8B approved. Moving on to 8C. This is regarding the pictures of said land. The bottom picture is an island that's currently owned by the city of Rhinelander that's in the town of Pine Lake. The middle picture is all city-owned property of city of Rhinelander in the town of Pelican. And then the above picture, I'll let Zach describe a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a mixture of commercial, multifamily, and I'd call it industrial property. many of those properties either have access to or are served by city utilities, so it's a pretty logical annexation since our ordinances generally require city jurisdiction if there's utilities, unless there's some other agreement in place. And again, that initiates a series of events which our attorney and the city clerk and others are involved in, as is outlined in the resolution.
Mr. Barnett?
Did you say there's homes and stuff on this island?
On this, not on the island, no.
No, not on the island.
No.
Okay.
It's also known as Estabrook Island. I think it's Baker's Island according to the plat. I'm not sure where the names
What
get
is
interchanged.
the gap?
Gap is a consistent finding across their property. It's unsurveyed. I'm not sure exactly what.
A gap is a piece of property that was never officially parceled. In other words, it never had a city parcel number given to it, so it hasn't been paying any taxes. That doesn't mean it's not necessarily owned by someone, but it does mean that there's no record of that parcel over at the Register of Deeds office or the tax, I hate to be called tax, the property lister's office. That's what it means. And there's several gaps, and if we look, we'll find them.
So how do you know if someone owns that?
Only a court of law can determine who owns property. No person can, anybody can assert a right to it. Neighbors often claim adverse possession. Some people claim under title, and they'll show you a deed that somehow never got recorded or something. It's really, it takes a legal proceeding to really clarify who owns it.
And it's roughly 50 feet by 20 feet, depending on the height of the water level. Mr. Anderson?
Well, is that gap the reason that we have to use this procedure rather than just incorporating city property into the city?
It's one of the big reasons, yes, because we don't know who the person is that we'd be, giving notice to.
Yeah.
If you don't know who you're giving notice to, it's very difficult.
Oh.
That's why we have this procedure that allows us to do that.
Barnett, I make a motion to pass Resolution 2022-20, intent to annex property to the city.
Anderson, second.
Mr. Holt?
I believe that he already did. Is that not the case?
No.
That was the last one. Oh.
Yeah, I just had a question.
Okay. Any more discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Now, minus one lot that we were just made aware of today, all city-owned property should be in the process of becoming part of the city, minus one landlocked 40-acre parcel way south on 17 that we were just made aware of. So, yeah. Moving on to 8D. If I could have Mark come up to describe what this expenditure is.
Was supposed to be connected to this.
So this is pay request number 1 from Pitlick and Wick for the pulverizing and repaving of Morrill, Lake, and Abner Streets. This pay request reflects the completion of those 3 jobs. We also added an extension of Morrill Street. What was bid was from the water tower down to Lake. We had them add on an extension from Lake to Morrill, which is a small block. Those quantities are reflected on this pay request. Also reflected on this pay request is the addition, which is going to come up in the next agenda item, which is a change order for the addition of Iverson Streets in 2 sections, one from Timber to Acacia, the other from Timber to the south to the dead end. Those were initially bid as alternates on this job, but were not awarded, but were added in as a change order, which you're going to see on the next agenda item. Also reflected on at the bottom in that next change order is some asphalt curbing that was added just to control water. These are all rural sections, meaning there's no curb and gutter on any of these streets. So to direct water appropriately on occasion, we'll add asphalt curb. So you see some asphalt curb on there as well. So the total work completed to date is 254, nope, I take that back. Completed to date is 164,000, holding 5% retainage. What is requested is $156,241.18, and we recommend payment.
Minus adding the additional block, was there any unforeseen issues or rise in price?
No, you
Cost?
can actually see, we always add supplemental items into these contracts for unexpected items that we think may come up. One is excavation and disposal of bad subbase, meaning they get into it, we find the road is soft, there's some bad materials, we'll undercut it, pull that out, put in some breaker run and shore that up. We have quantity in this contract for that, for a total of 19,818. We used 1,400 of that. So all the projects went well. Even adding in that block of Morrill, if you look at just the base bid items, not looking at the change orders, we're $16,000 under budget, and all those roads, including the supplementals, are complete.
Cool. Mr. Kelly?
I got a phone call the other day from a Mr. Bogie who lives on the southwest corner of Evergreen and Lake. And he said part of the road that was put in collapsed. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it washed. There was a storm that went through and washed some of that, so Pitlick and Wick will be in this week to fix that.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Would entertain a motion to approve.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to approve the pay request number 1 in the amount of $156,241.18 for Morrill, Lake, and Abner Street for Pitlick and Wick.
Mikulowski, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none, clerk take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 8E. Mr. Mark?
Again, I mentioned the 2 sections of Iverson that were added in. Those were alternates on the original bid. Those were added in after the fact, so we're adding them in as a change order. The prices that Pitlick gave on the original bid are shown on this change order. No changes in price were needed for that. So you're seeing those moved over as change orders. Those are the 2 roads that are not yet complete. I believe on Friday they put down the surface layer. You haven't seen quantities for that yet, and there'll be some topsoil restoration. And again, there's the asphalt curb that I had mentioned on the previous agenda item, and we did add 1 load of 3/4 inch base course. When we did Morrill Street from the tower, the intent was to widen that road. It was, I believe, a 14-foot wide road. They opened it up. We anticipated having to add a little more than that, but they found that road was actually quite wide. There was base course wide enough in there. Part of the reason we wanted to add the 3/4 inch base course is when they pulverize existing asphalt pavement, they'll pulverize it and it'll turn out like 3/4 inch base course, the largest materials like this. That road was completely deteriorated and it was in pieces the size of my fist. When they run that over at the pulverizer, they can't pulverize it. It ends up in big chunks like that. So they had anticipated needing some additional asphalt just to be able to do the fine grading to get ready for paving. So we added that item in. It only took 1 load, which is what you see here, to do that. So that's the 3/4 inch base course that you've seen on the change order as well. So the total with 2 sections of Iverson, the asphalt curb and the additional base course comes to $142,936.59. And we would recommend that.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $142,936.59 for work for Iverson Street and Morrill Street for Pitlick and Wick.
Henderson, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. Clerk, take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Motion passes. Would like to go into closed session if anyone would like to make said motion.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to go into closed session. A, if necessary, convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stat Section 19.85, subsection 1, sub CEG, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, discuss the purchase of property. B, discuss the sale of city-owned property. C, discuss negotiations with the Rhinelander Professional Police Association, Local 38. D, discuss the status of city administrator candidate search. E, adjourn closed session and return to open session. F, take action if necessary.
Holt, second for the above stated purpose.
Okay, clerk, take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
At least have a discussion of that.
That was a fast closed session.
But I'm gonna
I
put it
think
under,
we should try a new layout every meeting.
every meeting,
Until we
yeah,
decide on one that we
yeah.
Maybe 4 years. Let's do the mix of the round. 4 years sounds like a good time frame.
It is 6:58. Nothing to report out of closed session. Any future agenda items?
I'd like to have.
Mr. Barnett?
I'd like to request to have a discussion or a plan on how to utilize the amphitheater, the new amphitheater we're about to dedicate. Like, what's the process someone has to go through to be able to play there and all that. I'd like a layout of how that actually works.
So no different than any pavilion.
Oh.
That easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that easy.
Oh, okay.
So, Miss Daniel?
I did have somebody from Art Start come to me and ask how come the skate park has fallen off the agendas, which it has. So can we add something in maybe November to make sure that, you know, now that they've done the study, the feasibility study, it seems to have stalled, so I want to make sure it doesn't stall.
So, just to clarify, it hasn't fallen off the agenda. We are waiting for the outdoor rec plan to come back, which it did. And in last council, you approved the scope to look for a company to consult to design splash pad and skate park. So
Okay.
we're still moving forward. I'm assuming
right,
you're just out of
but
the loop.
it's not on future agenda items, so.
Oh, well, because we're waiting on scope of work to come back from
Okay.
the designer. So
Just making sure.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we could add that. Bad, Mr. Kelly's been waiting.
Yeah, I just want to have something, a discussion on moving these tables back to where they belong.
Sorry your mic wasn't on, Mr. Jopek.
I'd like to just raise, we got the crosswalks on Lincoln Street, but they are ineffective at raising any attention for families that are trying to cross the road. And so I'd like to raise some kind of future agenda item on how we can solve the issue of, you know, people with strollers waiting for 5 minutes on Lincoln Street for cars to stop so they can cross the crosswalk.
Is there
Lincoln Street over by, literally all the way down that road where there's that segment of houses between Shepherd and, well,
So
Shepherd
like Baird
Coolidge
and Eastern?
and Oneida. So there are crosswalks, which I'm very thankful for, but I've sat there with families, not my own, waiting and waiting and waiting, and I've actually gone out with my bike in the middle of the road and basically waved them down so that the family could cross. So I just, you know, piece together something that we can do, like a flashy light thing or the flags. I don't know.
Okay.
Just a study of that. Sorry, that was long-winded.
And now I believe we have to sit here silently until 7:42. No,
I tried, Tom.
so with that, meeting adjourned.